Hey guys, Mike the Cop, and as sure as the sun rises in the east, unless you're a flat earther, in which case I don't is the sun real? Where is it at? I don't know. Either way, as sure can be, whenever I talk about guns, particularly when it comes to guns and policing, I'm going to get comments, I'm going to get emails, I'm going to get messages, I'm going to get one or all of those things in combination saying that we should make changes to the way the United States polices to be more like the UK, because after all, they don't use guns. They're not armed, so why shouldn't we just do the same thing? It works for them. And there's a lot of problems with that. And so rather than me talking about it only from my perspective, I actually went live on my Twitch channel and did a live stream on the Mike the Cop show there and brought on a UK police officer with 21 years of experience, both in a rural and urban setting, who has literally been shot at and faced down the barrel of a gun pointed right at him, and speaks from experience about his take and understanding of the culture over there and arming or not arming police officers. We talk about some of the differences and our opinions and thoughts on that topic. So we didn't plan on this going on to YouTube per se. So this is, you'll see stuff on the screen that's, for Twitch and all that stuff. So hopefully that's not too distracting. I really want you guys to key in on the actual content that's being shared on this one. It's not real video driven, but there's a lot of good information here. And I'm going to talk about this in the future as well, but this is a good start to the conversation about the UK versus US policing, especially when it comes to how we handle firearms. So enjoy. See you in the comments. Good day.
I got you. Yeah, I will defend my brothers. I will defend the weak. I will pursue and fight evil so others may sleep. I am the sheepdog, protecting the night. Wolf hunters unite. Bring it on. It's time to fight.
James, are you here?
I am here. Hello.
Hey, what's up, buddy?
Yeah, not bad. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. I'm feeling svelte. I've been exercising.
Yeah, good.
I'm eating good, drinking plenty of whiskey. The healthy lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm currently sitting here with a bourbon myself.
Oh, a bourbon man. I knew I liked you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
People are saying they love your accent, James.
Oh boy, here it comes. Here comes all the ladies. Woo, swooning over the accent.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not even putting it on. This is genuinely my accent.
It's really in your mind there is no accent.
No, not at all. No.
Exactly. Although the UK or England proper is going to have distinguishable accents like we have in the States, because we have like southern accents where people talk like this, y'all, and have different sound and voices and all that stuff, and then you sound like me, who I sound like part Canadian because I'm right by the border.
Yeah.
So
we have a lot of regional accents here. I'm originally from a place called Cornwall. So if you're looking at England, and the bottom left hand sort of shaped like a boot that goes down to the bottom, that's where I'm from originally, where we're all fishermen and surfers.
Surfers, really?
Yeah, it's really good surfing down there. Place called Newquay. We had the World Surfing Championships there about 9 years ago.
Wow. I'm not in the surfing world, but that, I guess, doesn't surprise me. It probably shouldn't, but it sort of does. That's kind of like, I would never think of England as a surfing destination.
Yeah, we've got some amazing surf beaches, particularly in Cornwall.
That's awesome. So what is the surfer lingo there? Like here it's like, dude. It's like this laid back sort of like, is it the same over there?
It's exactly the same. Yeah, I think our surf sort of language and mannerisms, everything has been copied from the original surfers in like Hawaii. And
have you ever seen the old movie, The North Shore?
I have, yes.
Dude, I watched that so many times. Like back in the day, for me anyway, cable, it wasn't like today where there's so many choices. So if you had if you had HBO or something like that, they just replayed the same movies, like 3 or 4 in a month. Like they had a schedule, right? So The North Shore would be on multiple times a day, every day for 30 days. And I would watch it, because in the summertime, when my parents are gone during the day, me and my brother would get our chores and we would work, like get up in the morning and we'd do our chores. We'd have the lawn mowed and everything would be all done, and then we'd have like the afternoon. Well, we would just watch the North Shore, over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and I've never surfed.
It's a great movie to watch in the winter in particular.
There you go. So welcome to the show. My underpaid producer stepped out. Because I was going to have him play some like applause effect for you being here. This is kind of like last minute. I reached out to you in a private Facebook group that we're both a part of, and I appreciate you taking the time out to have the conversation. So
it's my pleasure.
Tell the viewers, aka they're listening to you, not seeing your beautiful face, but who are you? What's your law enforcement experience?
Okay, so my name is James. I come up as James Muffington, but that's an assumed surname, which would disappoint many people.
Right.
I get a lot of comments about the surname. My surname is actually Prowse. I started law enforcement in a sort of county rural force in 1997, and I stayed there for 4 years. And then I went to the Metropolitan Police in London and worked in the East End of London for 10 years.
And now what?
I left London in sort of about 2010, and I now work in a force or police service on the south coast of England.
Gotcha. So is it like a way different culturally between where you're at now and London?
It tends to be. Yeah, it's sort of it took a lot of sort of adapting policing style wise. In London, it's very much like any city police force like you guys have over there in sort of inner city areas. I used to work in a place called Hackney, which was pretty much named year after year the worst place and the most dangerous place to be a UK police officer outside of Northern Ireland.
Jeez.
Obviously Northern Ireland, the what was the Royal Ulster Constabulary, which then became the Police Service of Northern Ireland. That's the only armed force in the UK.
Right.
So those guys are routinely armed solely due to the obviously the terrorist attacks that occurred to them on and off duty on a daily basis since 1968.
Yeah, I had talked at one point on my other podcast to a guy from Northern Ireland whose father is a police officer there, and we were talking about just sort of like the day-to-day, like they as part of checking out their patrol vehicles, they check under them for like bombs. Like, wow. That's not in my repertoire of normal experience.
No, I've got family over there, and being a police officer in the UK and just going to visit family over there, I have to contact Special Branch, it's called. So that would be kind of like your FBI, this sort of federal intelligence gathering, sort of secret squirrel type people.
Is there some in the movie like Section 7 or something like that, or something like?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they work behind the scenes at all borders and airports and any port and that sort of thing, and they work very closely with the anti-terrorist command over here. But just to travel to Northern Ireland to visit my family, I have to contact them, let them know where I'm going to be, from when and where, and then set up like a safe word. If they randomly phone me and I say this word, it means I've been kidnapped or compromised. Right. So the risk is still, it's a huge risk over there still, and the reason I haven't transferred over there.
That's crazy. Someone has a funny comment on here. Cyanak, I don't know how to pronounce this. Some of these usernames on Twitch are crazy, but he says he's telling the backstory of the guy from Hot Fuzz.
Yeah. When I first moved down to the rural force I'm in now, that was my nickname, Sergeant Angel.
That's awesome. I love that movie.
It's a good bit.
So I have gotten this question a lot since I started on YouTube, and that is every time we have, like, whether it's a school shooting or police shootings and all this stuff that become prevalent, everybody says we should just police like they do in the UK, like they do in England, because they don't have guns, and they seem to get the job done, and they don't have the same problems we do. And I've always maintained that there are two primary reasons I don't think that works, and I want to get your take on that, and then you can dispel some myths or some of the perceptions that maybe I have, because I could be wrong too. But the first reason is that, I mean, we have current situations in both of our countries that we are where we are because of the way that we developed in the past. So there's a story behind everything. It's not like everything is the same about everything is the same about our countries, except the one thing we did different was choose to have guns and you guys chose not to. It's not that simple, is what I try to tell people. It's not like there's a backstory behind why guns were a thing, became a thing, and are still a thing in the United States by constitutional right. So there's just in some sense, it's comparing apples and oranges, because there's a cultural story that's different between us. Not that means that we're right. It just means that it's different. The other thing that I often come back with, and here's where you'll definitely correct me if I'm wrong, is that the density as far as the population goes, especially in a place like London, and maybe there's a different impact outside of that in more rural areas in the country, but in that dense of a populated area, it would be akin to like New York City, or more dense, in that you might have some cops walking around that don't have guns, the majority just sort of like taking reports and dealing with common police issues, but you're going to have an armed response available to you within minutes.
Do it now.
So I always say, like, it's not that the police are entirely unarmed altogether. It's just that the response is different with their armed response units.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Thank you, Back the Blue Gal, for following.
All right, thanks for the follow. All right, so that's my two sort of like go-to answers. What would you change about those? What do you agree, disagree? What kind of myths are out there that you would want to dispel about the differences between how we approach at least the armed police issue between our countries?
Yeah, I would totally agree. It's very much a cultural issue, not so much as a sort of how do I explain it, gun issue. Obviously, we had guns up until the 1980s. People could own pistols and rifles, and the regulation was really fantastic. And then we had a mass school shooting in Scotland in a place called Dunblane.
Okay.
It was a primary school. I don't know if you know the British tennis player Andy Murray. He was actually there when it happened. It was his school.
Okay.
And a number of children were killed, and a teacher as well. Now, after that, obviously, we completely changed our gun laws, and we banished all weaponry, apart from you can own a shotgun here, you can own a rifle here, but it's very heavily regulated. The police visit your home, they issue licenses direct, it's reviewed every 12 months. They come round and check that you have a gun safe, which is, sort of correctly, bolted to the wall or floor.
Right.
So somebody just can't come in and take it. Obviously, that simply wouldn't,
do it
in
now,
my opinion, as an English person, although I'm a Celt, so I don't really class myself as English.
Do it now.
I'm Cornish through and through. That simply wouldn't work in America, because even when we were allowed firearms, the culture here just wasn't sort of the same with regards to firearms. It was for sport, pistol shooting, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It wasn't, we've never been allowed any sort of weaponry here for defense, home defense or personal defense. And I think that's the most important thing that your media over there and the people that say use us an example as gun regulation that you guys should adopt is that we have never had the opportunity to defend ourselves with weaponry. We're completely governed by what is called reasonable force. So if somebody broke into my home and they had a weapon on them, I could realistically use a weapon against them. But it's really, really subjective, and there's been a lot of high-profile cases throughout the years where farmers who have shotguns legally have then sort of shot burglars and have actually ended up going to prison themselves.
Yeah.
Because it was deemed that even though they were breaking into the house, they didn't have weapons. So, and that's what really annoys me about the American media using us as an example, is that we've never had the right to bear arms to defend ourselves or our homes. So you can't really sort of compare us. With regards to armed police, I've policed now for 21 years, and I've been in uniform pretty much the whole time.
Yeah.
On the streets. I was there for the 7/7 terrorist attacks. I was first on scene to the bus bomb in Hackney at 21/7. 7/7 being our 9/11, basically.
Yeah.
And I would honestly say in the city, I have been shot at numerous times. It was where I worked in Hackney. It was 87% of black population, mainly sort of Caribbean, Nigerian, African descent. Now, the cultural issue with that is exactly the same as your guys in the cities like Chicago.
Right. Where gun violence is prevalent, or violence is prevalent.
Yeah, very much so. Here, they sort of divided it up. It's kind of strange. I worked in a very, very white area when I first went to London, just on the border of Essex, but it was still Metropolitan Police, not Essex Police, called Dagenham and Barking. And that was, it's almost like the criminals got together and they had a big meeting, had a sort of, all sat down, divided up crime and divided up drugs, because the sort of white areas, the drug of choice is heroin. And you go to the sort of areas which were mainly black population, and the drug of choice was crack cocaine.
Okay.
And it was very, very segregated. It never really bled into each other. And with crime as well, in the white areas, they'd commit sort of burglaries, whether commercial or dwelling, but they'd also break into cars, whereas the black population would tend to go more gang sort of style, selling drugs, but also robbery, sort of robbing an individual. That started, that was very, very much sort of the norm in the turn of the millennium. That started to change considerably with the sort of influx of gangs marked by postcodes, which was a huge copy of the gang culture in America. Sort of the UK population, regardless of colour or race or even country of origin, became completely obsessed with the American gang culture.
Yeah.
And the inner cities, that is what sort of developed. And again, it was governed by stupid boundaries like postcodes, pretty much the same as America. And then with that came the desire for respect, weaponry, and that is when we really, really noticed a change. Sort of about 2002, 2003, I moved to Hackney in the East End of London, which is a mainly black population, and we formed a unofficial gang unit. We already had a unit set up for what they call black on black gun crime, which was Operation Trident. And again, these are just detectives, they're not armed. But at a local level, we formed task force ourselves. And sort of, but it was basically a gang unit. Now, all of us had guns pulled on us. I had a Glock pulled on me by a 13-year-old who was dealing crack. A friend of mine had a similar experience with a young black lad who was 12 years old.
So
he pulled the trigger.
What happens in those situations? Like when that kid pulled a gun on you and you're unarmed, what's the way that got handled?
They decide whether we live or die. It's that serious. Our hands at that moment in time is in the life of a 13-year-old crack dealer.
Wow.
and there's not a damn thing we can do about it. We've got an extendable baton, which was shortened because it looked too intimidating. So they're pointless, and we carry pepper spray. That's it. And now they've started to introduce taser. The force I work for now, I'm probably more at risk here than I was in the East End of London. As you mentioned earlier, in the inner city, backup is there within seconds. Here, if I was faced with a person who was armed with anything, I would have probably, if I'm lucky, a 40-minute wait for an armed officer.
40? 40?
40 minutes, yeah.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and most of the time I'm working an entire town on my own.
Jeez. So, with all of that said, as someone with the 21 years of experience in policing in the UK, would you say that you would prefer, or that you personally, would you prefer to be armed?
Follow. Do it now.
Hell yes.
So, yes. Do you feel like the majority of people you've worked with over the years, majority of officers there feel the same way, that given the choice, they would want to be armed?
Yes, I think the problem is a lot of the older officers and particularly the rural areas, they've never faced an inner city environment, and it always goes out to our union, as it were, the federation, and they hold a vote. But what it boils down to is no member of the government has the balls to issue that order. And also, the sort of policing over here now, they're trying to run policing like a Walmart. It's all about customers.
Yes, it's
all about
as long as the customer is happy.
Service.
Yeah.
Follow.
Yeah,
Do it now.
It's all about customer service, and they're trying to run it like a business with budgets.
That's like trying to make shoplifters happy with their experience.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we were told at one point a few years ago not to call them prisoners when they were in custody, to call them customers. Now,
my goodness!
Wow. Yeah. You can imagine the response.
Yeah, to continue that analogy, it's like that's like calling the shoplifter a customer. Well, I mean, you are kind of, other than the fact that you're a thief and stealing from this business.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they wanted. The arguments against us are all moot. They're outdated. The world has changed. We are, I think, one of two forces now, two countries in the entire world that aren't armed, and one of them is, I think, an island somewhere in the Indonesian islands. It's the whole old image of the British Bobby is outdated, and nobody has the guts to change it. And they say that obviously the London terror attacks that happened at Borough Market, you had 3 drugged up terrorists who had injected themselves with amphetamines and steroids before the attack, so they could keep going for longer. And they had these fake suicide belts attached to them, and they obviously ran as many people over as possible with the hired van they had, and then they ran into this nightclub area, and then just started stabbing randomly, anybody they could. Now, the first officer that arrived on scene was a British Transport Police officer, and that's a police force that looks after our tubes and trains, that sort of thing. And he was on his own, and he was unarmed. Now, this bloke drew his baton and then charged down the terrorists. And he continued trying to swing his baton, even though he had 2 of them. He was stabbed in the eye, the face, the head.
Oh my goodness!
And his body, I think he was stabbed something like 15 times, and he was still fighting them, still battening them, even though he'd lost his sight, everything. When the armed officers turned up, and thankfully, as soon as the armed officers turned up, they just shot them immediately, because they knew that there's obviously no negotiating with them. There's no other way of stopping them during a terrorist attack other than shooting them.
Yeah,
now that's the armed officers were there, I think, within 4 minutes, which is obviously fantastic. But it's only a matter of time until a terrorist attack happens where I am, which is we have a city, the city of Bournemouth. It is a very, very popular place. It's a university, and it's full of nightclubs, and it's like the stag
Follow. Do it
and hen
now.
do. Um, is that what you guys call them before you get married?
What do you?
Stag do's,
No, I'm not. No, we
bachelor
don't.
party. That's what you call them.
Yeah, bachelor. I was trying to think. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, exactly. Yeah, bachelor party. That sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. So this place is like the capital of the country for those sort of things. It's got a very, very popular beach. August bank holiday, we have something like 12,000 people on one beach alone. Now, it's only a matter of time until the terrorists realise that we are a soft target.
Right.
And I dread to think, experiencing more than one terrorist attack myself. I've tried to, I've explained to the force that I work for that a bank holiday weekend here in the summer, August weekend, if you had sort of the Borough Marcus style attack, so you had
Follow.
terrorists
Do it now.
that just had knives, let alone
Yeah.
guns, they would probably kill well in, over 50, 60 people before our armed officers even got there.
Yeah.
That's the big difference. Now, the arguments against arming us within the police, the sort of older generation of police officers, is that they don't feel the need, and that's generally because they've never been in the situation where, as I mentioned earlier, they've never had their life decided for them by
Right.
a criminal. They've
Yeah.
never had a gun pointed at them. I myself have been unlucky enough to have been pinned down on two separate occasions, and bizarrely, both occasions the person had a Tech 9.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you got to say? It's like 13 rounds a second.
Yeah.
Again, this guy was shooting his way into a crime scene to recover
Follow.
a gun because it
Do
was
it
his
now.
favorite handgun. And you've got, I was a sergeant then, and I'm dragging inexperienced officers underneath vehicles to try and protect them while this guy does his thing, because we were completely, defenseless. We had no way of defending ourselves. We had no way of defending the public in the area. So the sort of argument is with the officers that have never experienced that is very, very outdated, and we always get the same arguments, and it's, oh God, such and such, I wouldn't trust him with a pen, let alone a gun.
Yeah.
Well, if that person isn't intelligent enough to be able to handle a firearm safely, then they shouldn't be in the police in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
That's my argument. We drive great big 1-ton vehicles on the wrong side of the road at speed. Now, that would do more damage than a gun.
Exactly.
If they can't control that car, they're not in the job. If they can't, some people seem to think we're going to have police officers here like spinning the gun round in the canteen like a cowboy and trying to quick draw and stuff.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
So all of this that you're saying, it baffles me. The reason I love having you to have this conversation is because it's so easy for people. It's really like in our culture over here, and probably similar from what I've seen of different things that I've looked into as far as London goes, particularly, is this idea of being offended on behalf of other people, even though you're not those people.
Yeah.
So you want to culturally appropriate something so that you can be offended on their behalf. I'm supposed to get upset when something happens because the culture tells me I'm supposed to be upset or I'm supposed to be offended. There's no critical thinking in it. And so it's so common over here. Every time these shootings happen is like, we should just be like them. And it's like, wait a second, have you even talked to them? Is that how most of them feel, whoever they are, And so it's really cool to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. It's just, you can't compare it because it's not just the access to weapons, which the media seems to be obsessed with.
Mm-hmm.
It's a complete cultural thing. You can't compare. And you can't compare Australia either. I know they They had a mass shooting like we did, and they banned weaponry, blah blah blah. But they still never had the culture
Right.
surrounding firearms as America does. And
Right.
again, they didn't have that God-given right to bear arms, and that's the biggest difference. And that is what certainly the media in not just America but also over here, they just simplify things too much. And like you said, you can't compare the UK. If I had a choice, I would carry a firearm and
Yeah.
pray I never have to draw it. But the time that one of my brothers or sisters needs it, it's there for them. The prime example being two Greater Manchester police officers 5 years ago, two female officers, one very experienced, one quite new. We had a gang war going on in Manchester, and two particular gangs where it was a tit for tat, pretty much like you guys see every day.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it wasn't an everyday thing over here. They sort of they got their hands on some stolen army grenades and blew each other up with grenades.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a lot of firearms, and they kept shooting each other. And then this one person in particular was fingered for throwing a grenade at a opposition member and killing him. So he knew he was going to go to prison for a very, very long time. So he decided the best thing to do is he phoned in a fake burglary in progress report. The two officers turned up, and he came out with a Glock 9mm with an extended magazine
Mm-hmm.
and shot them both. Now, they both actually lived long enough that if they'd had a firearm, they would, at least one of them would have survived. Now, the experienced officer, Fiona, she had a taser. Even though she had taken about 7 or 8 rounds to her body armor and had been shot, she still managed to draw that taser and fire at him.
Mm-hmm.
And the other experienced officer managed to jump into a neighboring garden. Now, if they had had firearms, at least one of them probably would have survived,
Right.
because they would have been trained to return effective fire.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good he is or how many bullets he has, he's not going to be able to direct fire at two people with one weapon.
Yeah.
Now, sadly, he executed Fiona because she didn't have the means to protect herself. So he just walked up to her and shot her in the head.
Yeah.
And the other inexperienced officer, she was cornered in the garden. He shot her and then blew her up with a grenade.
Yeah.
Now, it's that sort of thing that really winds me up and gets me really angry with the backdated and out-of-date attitude in this country.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather have a firearm and it collect dust on my hip, so those two could have had the chance to defend themselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you really, the sort of media comparing the British police and the American police, we are not a threat like you guys are. Don't get me wrong, the anti-police feeling seems to be worldwide.
Yeah.
We are just, the threat of us being ambushed like that is very, very, very rare. Very rare.
Right.
It just doesn't happen. So they can't compare policing. And, yes, we do have very good communication skills over here. That's not saying that the American police don't. It's solely because I might have to wait 40 minutes for backup.
Right.
If I don't use my mouth effectively, then I'm probably going to get seriously injured or killed.
Right.
But it's gotten to a stage in the UK now in some areas that if you think it's going south rapidly and you think you're going to lose, then we are walking away. We are getting in our cars and we are driving away.
Yeah. Man.
As long as there's no threat to the public and innocent people are going to get hurt, but police officers are having to sacrifice themselves for the public.
I
even
think,
though we know
when I think about stateside, I think any move, even in the direction that you guys, the conditions you guys are working in, would immediately be capitalized upon here. I mean, to the max. It would be a nightmare situation. if we had to back off like that, or if that was the culture, like, and then again, that comes back to the cultural differences, the whole entire history of how our country's developed. It would be a completely different ball game if that happened here.
Yeah, that is the crutch point that the the sort of liberals and the people that are crying out for gun control and stuff, that is what they need to realize first. It's not about gun control. You need to focus on the human aspect first.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this is just my personal opinion as a sort of outsider who has friends who are police officers in America and Canada, and friends of mine in Australia.
Do it
and
now.
We all say the same things. It's not gun control isn't going to work over there because you guys, each state has their own different sort of gun laws, don't they?
Yeah, to some degree,
yeah. So until that was all brought into line, it wouldn't work, because anybody who wanted a gun couldn't get it where they live. They can just move. They can just go to they can just go to a different state. What needs to be addressed first is what President Trump was talking about with regards to mental health. And I've seen a couple of videos of American school kids standing up when they're doing this walkout, saying that you're walking out to get out of class. What you need to do is the kid who you think is a loner, who would normally be bullied, that sort of thing, sit with them at lunch, talk to them, ask about their home life, that sort of thing. And that, in my personal opinion, I think that would dramatically reduce school shootings, is getting rid of that culture of the jocks, the geeks, the goths.
Right.
The way we divide people up, and it's the same here. Our youths, particularly in the inner cities like London, they've just replaced guns with knives because they're so easy to get hold of.
Yeah, no doubt.
We had last week we had 8 murders, all under the age of 17.
Wow.
All knife. And
that didn't make CNN or Fox News over here. So
no, it's surprising.
It won't fit the narrative, right? It's not gonna. They're not gonna say, "Oh, look how well not having guns does on murders." I can promise you, in the city of Detroit, and I live in Metro Detroit, I can promise you, we did not have many. Like, the number of murders with knives is probably close to nil compared to guns, right? So if we took away the guns and all they had was knives, I'd bet that would go up. So, I mean...
exactly. It doesn't matter what weapon they're using, it's still happening. And obviously you're not going to see that over there because, your media aren't going to want to... like you said, it doesn't fit the narrative.
Right.
It's all about scaremongering. The news has become less and less about facts. It's become more about sensationalism and viewing figures, and whoever scares the most and has the most strong opinions are the ones that win. And even our news over here don't report on it.
Might have lost him there.
Yeah, we might have lost him.
Are we still live? I don't know.
Yeah, we are still live.
All right. Not sure what happened there. I lost James. But I think I was about ready to wrap that up, and because the stream is ending, and I've got chicken masticholi waiting at home, so I'm gonna be eating dinner here soon.